So good morning. Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast Sunday morning service. And for those of you who are watching, if you've never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all belief and lifestyles. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. And so to begin our service this morning, our practitioner, Patrice Rivera, is going to open us up with a prayer and then with the spiritual reading. And we're glad to have you back this week, Patrice. Patrice, you're muted.
There we go. As we just take that deep breath in, sinking down, settling into that heart space, that place where we know with beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is one truth, one love, one infinite power and presence that created the universe, that created this planet, that created each and everything on this planet out of, through, and in that love, that there is nothing else. We can turn away, but it never leaves us. That love is the truth of who each and everything on this planet, in this universe is. That is where we live, move, and have our being. So in knowing this absolute truth, I know that as a one paint box with many different colors, one story with many different words, we are each and every one of us there. And so I know that at a heart place, each and every one of us hurt when one of us hurts. Each and every one of us remember somewhere deep inside of us, even if we act out and we don't act in a way that looks or feels very loving or kind, love is still the truth of who we are. And in that place, I can relax and rejoice. And from that place, I feel embraced. And so from that place, I know that each and every one of us within the sound of Reverend Ron's voice, when he speaks, remember who we are. I also know that each and every one of us who can't hear Ron, who don't feel that love, they still know it's there somewhere. And I know that this meeting of like-minded souls, of like-minded hearts, is such a blessing. It's such a blessing in the hearts of each and every one of us that can hear. And it is such a blessing in the hearts of each and every one who can't hear, because we're up-leveling the love on this planet. I give such gratitude for each and every one of us that are here. And I am so, so very grateful for the words of love that come out of the heart of love of our beloved Dr. Ron. I am so grateful for each and every one of us, every tear that we shed, all the love that we feel, because that is the truth of where God is. And so from this place, in great, great gratitude, I just release and let go and know that God is all there is, and it is so. And so it is. And if I can get through the reading that Edgar found, because he was going to be here without crying. Jesus refers to his joy on the eve of his greatest lesson to mankind, that joy which is full and complete, that joy which no man can take away, that joy of a sense of completion. He was about to lay down his earthly life as the greatest object lesson ever taught. And what was this lesson? That love knows no bounds, and that the eternal goodness gives itself to all. God, as man, in man, is man. Woman, too.
Thanks, Patrice. So, good morning again. So my title today is Love Your Neighbor. And I was thinking this morning that I ought to do a disclaimer here, that I know a lot of what I'm going to be speaking about today is easier to speak about than it is to live. But the aim is to try to live it. So I want to begin with a short quote from Ernest Holmes, who founded the Center for Spiritual Living. And he wrote years ago, "In the long run, everyone who loves is loved. All who give joy receive it back." Simple words, simple truth. So I want to begin with a story that I read this week. And it's a story about a woman who gets on the subway. And as she gets on, she sees a seat. And she's headed for the seat when another woman comes and bumps her right out of the way. In fact, sends her flying and takes the seat. And this first woman, the victim, gets really angry and calls this woman an animal and all kinds of other names. And later on, she feels really guilty that she did that, and at her loss of composure. And she says to one of her friends, "What can I do when somebody acts like that? How can I keep up my spirit of love and harmony? What's wrong? What's wrong with the world?" And my guess is probably everybody here can relate to that story in one way or another. We probably all had some kind of experience of conflict similar to that. And the simple answer is, before we can fix conditions out here, we need to fix our consciousness in here. We need to be able, when we have difficult situations like this, we need to be able to respond rather than to react. And since God is everywhere, no matter where we are and no matter what's going on, we always have the ability to turn into God's love. And truthfully, when we call the other person an animal, what good does that really do when we too act like an animal? The fact is, we all need love. Leo Buscaglia was a professor, I'm pretty sure it was at UCLA, and he started a course there that he simply titled Love. And he had a student that he really got close to. And then he noticed that she stopped coming to class, and he couldn't figure out why. And he found out later from another professor that she had committed suicide. She jumped off a ledge somewhere. And he said to the other professor, he said, in her education as she was growing up, she learned all about math. She learned all about history and all the other classes. And he said, I wonder if somebody had taught her about love, if she would have done what she did. So Pema Chodron is a Buddhist nun. And I was reading a couple of her books this week. And in one of them, she said, it's never too late to look at our minds. She said, when we buy into disapproval, we practice it. When we buy into harshness, we practice it. She said, isn't it so sad to see that we've become expert in harming ourselves and harming others? She said, what we need to do is we need to learn how to practice gentleness and letting go. We don't have to make a big deal out of every slight. And she said, any gesture of kindness and gentleness for ourselves affects the way, or for anybody else, affects the way that we experience the world. And what we do for ourselves, we do for others. And what we do for others, we do for ourselves. So I want to share with you another quote. This one is from Hugh Prather. And he wrote, "We need people to be fully human. We need people to love and laugh with, to treat tenderly, to trust. Unless there is someone to give my gifts, who can I trust with my dreams?" So Mary Marcy, in one of her books, makes the point that I just made about the difficulty in living what I'm speaking about today. And she said, we all have difficult people in our lives. It may be the customer service person that keeps you on the phone on hold for 20 minutes, and then when she comes back, hangs up on you. Could be your mother-in-law. It could be the guy who cuts you off on the freeway. Could be your boss who mistreats you. Whatever it is, coping with difficult people in loving ways may be difficult, but the truth is it can be done. In the Course in Miracles, it said, I must have chosen wrongly because I'm not at peace. And Mary says, so when somebody upsets us, when somebody does whatever they do to upset us, what if we paused and said to ourselves, God, how can I get over this and return love? What if we asked ourselves that, God, how can I get over this and return love? We know when we're on this spiritual path, when compassion becomes our knee-jerk reaction. And difficult people give us the opportunity to see who we want to be when the going gets rough. Stephanie Dowrick is a spiritual writer. I forgot now if she lives in New Zealand or Australia, but she's from down under. And she makes a really great points. She says that very often when people get nasty, and when people get nasty, let me start over. She said people get nasty when they feel uncomfortable or guilty, when they feel uncomfortable or guilty. And what they do is they try to make the other person bad. She said, if you're tempted to hurt another person or to disparage them, ask yourself, what's my motive here? What's my history with that person? And then she makes what I think is such an important point. She says, when we're making somebody small, when we're making somebody wrong, when we're making somebody bad, it's always, always more about us than it is about them. Let me say that again, because I think that's crucial. When we are making somebody bad, when we're making somebody wrong, when we're making somebody small, it's always more about us than it is about the other person. And she says what we need to do is live encouragingly. So let me give you a couple of points by what she means live encouragingly. She said, make positive comments like, I love the way you fill in the blank. Thank you so much for fill in the blank. I have been so helped by fill in the blank. She said, let small upsets go. Appreciate how others are different from us. And take time to listen. And lastly, and this is, I think, another great point, she said, there's no such thing as a private feeling. There's no such thing as a private feeling. They all get lived out through our attitude. So I want to share something with you. When I was a senior in the School of Ministry, one of our instructors said, there were 4 of us in the senior class, and he said, I got an assignment for the 4 of you. I want you to go out and I want you to speak to 3 ministers. He said, I don't care who they are. I don't care what denomination they are. I want you to go out and speak to 3 ministers. And here's what I want you to say and what I want you to ask them. I want you to tell them that you are a senior in the School of Ministry and you want to know, what is it I need to know that they haven't taught us in the School of Ministry? What do I need to know? So I went out and I asked that question to 3 ministers. And each one of them said in their own way the same thing. They didn't use the same words, but they said the same thing. They said, when you go out and you start to minister, there are going to be a lot of people that you love and that love you back. And there are going to be some that drive you nuts. They're not going to be okay. They might be mean, whatever it is. But here's the lesson. You got to love the people. No matter what, you've got to love the people. And one of them gave me an example that I think about every once in a while, and I remember. She said, let me tell you what I do every Sunday. She had a large church. She was a unity minister in Southern California. She said, I come to my church. She said, I get here about 5:30 in the morning. I want to make sure I get here before anybody else, before any of the volunteers, before any of the musicians. And I come here and I meditate, and then I pray, and then I get up and I go to every single seat in this building, and I put my hands on every chair and I bless the person that's going to sit in this chair this morning. You know, kindness is a central factor in all of our lives. It can transform us. I read this week that Aldous Huxley did years of research on the most effective way that we can transform our lives. And near the end of his life, when people asked him what he learned from his research, he said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the only thing I learned is just be a little kinder. Just be a little kinder. Robert Taylor wrote a book called A New Way to Be Human. And he says in there, you know, your life and your spirituality is not just about you. He said, when you feed somebody that's hungry, when you tutor a young child, your consciousness will shift. And in some way, the whole world changes. You know, we need to accept everybody. We need to know that our differences aren't good and they aren't bad. They're just differences. They're just, they're just differences. And we need to look beyond labels. I'm sure most of you have heard this before, but Rumi wrote, out beyond ideas of wrongness and rightness, there is a field. I will meet you there. So I was thinking when I was preparing this week, I thought about something I hadn't thought about in years, and I just want to share it with you. So I was living in Southern California. I had moved there in the spring, and now it was wintertime. I think it was the week before Christmas. If it wasn't the week before, it was 2 weeks before Christmas. And I had my two sons in the car, and they were really young. And I was stopped at a red light, and I had an old Cadillac. It was a really old, it was a compact Cadillac. I forgot the model now. And it was really beat up. It was scratched up and it was dented, but I couldn't afford to get a new car just then. And I was stopped at a red light. There was a car in front of me, then me, and there was a car in back of me. So I was in the middle. When the light turned green, the car in front of me started to go and then it stopped. And so I stopped, but the car in back of me didn't, and he hit me. So we both get out of the car and our cars, and I could see he's upset. Now he's not spewing and cursing, but I could see he's upset. And he says to me, "You stopped. That's why I hit you. You stopped." And I said to him, "Well, there was a car in front of me, and the car in front of me stopped." And I looked at him and I said, "Tell me something. Look at my car here." I said, "See all the dents and all the scratches?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you tell me which one you did?" And now he looked at me like I was out of my mind. And in fact, I still remember he backed up a step or two. And he said, "What?" I said, "I'm asking you, take a look at my car. It's all scratched and there's a bunch of dents. Can you tell me, point out which one you did?" And he looked, he said, "I have no idea." And I said, "Me either. Merry Christmas." And we shook hands and he laughed. He was obviously pretty relieved. And we got back in our cars. And, I tell you that story because there was a time, at least once in my life, when I didn't make a big deal out of something. But there's another part to this that still fascinates me. I got in the car and I said already, my kids were pretty young. When I got in the car, one of them turned to me and said, "What did you just do? We could have sued. We could have been rich." I have no idea where they learned that, but it always struck me. Here they were, little boys, and they were already thinking about suing and about getting rich by taking advantage of somebody. They didn't learn it from me, by the way. So I read a blog this week by a lady named Brianna West, a blogger, an article, and she says in there, we want to change our society. We want to make it a better place. And she said, before we change society, we need to change ourselves first. She said, we want a more loving and accepting society. And if that's what we want, we need to become more loving and more accepting. The world only changes as individuals change. You know, we in New Thought say we change the world one consciousness at a time. And she makes the point, she said, we are all society. You and I, we're society. And we aren't exempt from the other people that we complain about. We're not exempt from them. And so we need to take responsibility for our part. We can't tell people to stop judging when we continue to judge. And she said, when we change, when you and I change, we wind up leading by example. And so I want to close today with something. I believe it was written by somebody named Hilda Charlton, but I'm not 100% sure who wrote it. And I think it'll be very self-explanatory. A voice asked, "Who or what is God?" The pine trees sighed softly, "I am." Deep in the jungle of grass and weeds, a tiny ant paused and declared, "I am." From a million light years away, the burning of a star came, "I am." A turtle poked his head out of its shell and said, "I don't understand the question." "Who or what is God?" the voice repeated. "Oh," said the turtle, tucking his head back in his shell, "I am." A voice asked, "Who is God?" The ocean roared, "I am." The trees softly swayed, "I am." A little newborn child cried, "I am." A yogi high in the Himalayan caves cried, "I am." Then a voice said, "Will the real God please stand up?" And the entire universe quietly stood up. God bless you. Thank you for being here this morning, and have a blessed week.